Hi folks, welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns and today I just wanted to knock together a quick video, more of a PSA, about something that's been rattling around in my head for a little while. And no, don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about PTU access, I think that's been done to death by now. Instead I'm talking about ship buffs and nerfs and how they might sway someone to buy a certain ship. Primarily this applies to those who are thinking about parting with hard currency for their chosen JPEG, but to some extent it also matters for people committed to buying ships in-game. As we see greater periods of persistence between patches, it should still be accepted that your aUEC is essentially your time. I'm determined to deliver quick when I say it for once, so we're going to forgo the intro just for this vid, but feel free to hit pause and grab the obligatory cup of tea. So why now? Well, our favourite meme ship is back in the headlines. Nope, not you. Yes, you. The Crusader Ares Ion and Inferno have been really hard ones for CIG to find a point of balance with. Too hot to begin with, and the Ion in particular became the ultimate I win button, one or two shotting most light fighters, which was a role it was never really intended for. But the too cold follow-up left it unable to even hit a proverbial barn door, or in this case hammerhead. CIG have put the ship back in the oven again, and after some tweaks are hoping that it's just right now. With just a pinch of aim assist, it should probably be capable of long-range attacks on chunkier adversaries, without becoming a fighter evaporator. It would be really easy to say the problems with the Ares were largely down to CIG's choice of manufacturer. There's no real issue with the concept of a massive flying cannon, but the problems begin when said flying cannon is made by Crusader, a company renowned for speed and handling. There's a saying in the British building trade that you can have your job done to a high standard, cheap and quick, but you only get to pick 2 out of 3 of those. If it's cheap and good quality, it'll likely be slow. If it's cheap and quick, it'll be low quality, etc. And when it comes to ships in SC, I think if we dumb it down for my smooth brain, we've got a similar sort of triangle forming between DPS, handling and sustainability. The issue with the Ares at the outset was that it had a greater performance in all 3 areas. And because of the design flavour of the manufacturer, CIG's hands were a bit tied on the handling dial. And the ship was advertised as having great shields, so sustain was also a hard dial for them to move on. And that's what led to them having to fiddle with the DPS dial to tone that down. I can't help but think that a lot of this could have been avoided if the size 7 cannon ship had just been a Drake Cutlass variant, freeing the devs up to tweak the other dials. But this discussion isn't just about fixating on the Ares, or any one ship for that matter, it's more about our attitude towards ships in general. The issue is that, due to the way that Star Citizen has been developed, we've become really attached to our ships, both current and future. We've convinced ourselves of how they should or will perform, due to the money or time we've invested, and we're prone to getting angry when we perceive them to be changed for the worse. And don't get me wrong, I've been in this position too. Up until the sweeping rebalances in 3.15, I was a fully signed up subscription paying member of the Aegis Saber fan club, and I was a little disappointed to move on from it. But the one thing I think we have to accept is that game balance is more important than our personal attachment to a certain ship. Balancing is going to be a constant process, and in all likelihood it's going to extend way beyond a live release of StarCit. And maybe for me personally, it's because I spent a lot of time playing mobbers, primarily League. But I'm not that bothered about ships going up and down in the rating. With every minor patch in a game like League, certain champions will move around in the tier list. So while we all have our favourites, there's an acceptance that if it's OP now, it will probably catch a nerf in the next patch. Players can then choose to move around and pick up new tools based on what's particularly strong, or, like me, you can just one-trick your favourite champion and ride out the good times and the bad. Any mid-main for life, by the way. In the future, I can see systems developing in Star Citizen which would make moving around a far less painful experience. I always like to strip the way I view the game back to imagine the experience of a new player who turns up later in SC's development, maybe even post-live, and buys in with a standard starter ship like an Aurora or a Mustang. CIG have said a couple of times about how they want ship prices to increase in the eventual version of the game. The range given was between 4 and 12 times the current prices we see now. So it's safe to say that when the time comes, we'll be buying ships and sticking with them for a lot longer than we do now when working our way up the chain. And with features such as maintenance to look forward to, I think it will make sense that we'd have some form of part exchange system in the game. You don't want a lot of ships gathering dust in the hangar that you still have to look after. So where when you go to buy a new ship, you'll also trade in your much loved previous vessel to knock some credits off the list price. A part exchange mechanism would really help ride out the buffs and nerfs, since if as the game moves around, we maybe need to alter our org fleets, it would take away some of the pain of a sideways move in ship value. But that's the future, and I know that here in the now, we don't have these benefits. And so instead, as per the title of this video, I'd advise that you don't forget the rule of cool. I make a big point of not telling people how to spend their cash. Maybe you worked for it, maybe you were given it, maybe you found a big bag of money in the forest. I just think that it's yours and you should spend it however you want. But if I've got one piece of advice, it's to let your heart lead the way rather than your head. Telling you to switch off the logic engine isn't exactly a big leap, we're already exchanging hard currency for internet spaceships. But what I mean here is that if you just happen to love a particular ship and you can see yourself flying it, whether it's been buffed or nerfed, whether it's S tier or C tier, then that's likely to leave you feeling just fine as the waves of game balance pass over you. Whereas if you make your decisions based on buying X amount of power, and carefully assess the USD to power conversion ratios of the various ships on offer, you're ultimately just setting yourself up to be disappointed if and when they change. This particularly applies to the hot new thing. I've seen the conspiracy theories that CIG will go in and purposely make a new release insanely powerful just to jack up the sales, then nerf it afterwards. It's a common trope in nearly all games with rolling releases and new things introduced. But the reality is that when you add a new ingredient, you can quite often have overlooked exactly how it will be used. It's only when it gets mass testing by the player base, who maybe use it in ways that the devs just didn't even envisage, that you get a better picture of how it needs to be tweaked. So if you find yourself drifting down that particular route and starting to think that you need to pick up something because it's so hot right now, maybe just get your expectations ready for a nerf. If you're buying it because it's so strong, maybe it's too strong. And as I always say, happiness equals expectations minus reality. So I think we can bring this PSA to a close. I really hope it didn't come off as preachy or white knighting. It's just a cycle that I see going round and round, and I'd seen a couple of comments on Discord and on YouTube about people looking to buy an Ares now that it was better. The way I look at it is that the number one promise that CIG have actually made to us is that they're going to try and make the best damn space game. And in order to get there, constant balancing is going to be a fact of life in the verse. And with all that said, I'd just like to say thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.